Who jumps out of perfectly good airplanes in the name of science? Mr. C.
And 8th graders, happy Thursday to you. And I'm taping this Wednesday afternoon, and boy, is the wind howling. I mean, it is blowing about as hard as it usually blows. So, pardon me. So while I'm talking about the weather a little bit, excuse me, and I want to show you something from the National Weather Service. So while I'm talking about the weather, if you'll take out your two best friends, what would that be, Mr. C? That would be, there they are. Yeah, do I have that up? Then there it is right there. And I'm getting there. And your lesson planner. So, and let's see if I can find this, because I wanted to show you this because it's really important. This is going to happen to us over the month of March. Some of you may have heard this before. Have you ever heard that March comes in like a lion and goes out like a lamb? So let me show you this. Well, it's coming in like a lion right now, today. Now this is Wednesday and about 4:30 in the afternoon. So check this out on the National Weather Service site. See that? You see it says red flag warning. And Phoenix is in that red flag warning. What is it? High winds. We were supposed to have winds today of 35 miles an hour or more, and the air is so dirty today because of all the particulates that are blowing around. Dust and bits of everything blowing around all over the valley. So expect this in March. You can expect this. We have what are called cold fronts go through, and they have pretty good wind behind them and usually cooler air. So I think we're supposed to cool off about 10 degrees. And if you play, for instance, baseball here in the spring, I'm not sure if you guys are playing baseball right now. So an outdoor sport right now, it's kind of annoying in March. So it comes in like a lion, yeah, where you get, some days you get wind and cooler air, and then it'll warm back up, and then another front will come through with wind and cooler air. So it's typical of March in Phoenix and in the Midwest, actually, where I used to live in South Dakota and North Dakota. March comes in like a lion and goes out like a lamb. Where in April, and this it's true of Phoenix, in April we usually have way more stable weather, and usually it would be unusual to not have storms in April. But last year we did. And you know what I'm praying this year? That we'll get a number of dumps in the high country of snow, because we need it, especially on what river system? The Verde River. On the Verde River. That's where we need it. Those lakes are real low. So anyway, on that, what's called Watershed, right? So all of the land where the creeks and the rivers run off into the Verde River. So that would be the Verde River watershed. The Salt River watershed's doing pretty good, and probably will get up into the 80s, and if we got some big dumps, maybe even into the 90%. So anyway, so cool stuff. So I wanted you to see that. So we've got the wind as they predicted. Okay, so number of things that I want to show you in a little bit, number of pictures. So, okay, your homework, of course, I'm sure you've already got it in your lesson planner that you have a test tomorrow. And I have good news about that. In fact, 2 bits of good news. So let me find this. Here are the 2 bits of good news. The 2 bits of good news are, number 1, the test is going to be short, probably 30 points. And I'm going to hunt and pick from the second bit of good news. I have a complete study guide up, and it's in the Wednesday's homework notes section of RenWeb. It's there. I'm going to show it to you in just a minute. Okay? You'll get to see it, and I'll go over it. But I want to show you a few pictures first, okay, that I will reference in a little bit. So, some of the things that you went over. So check this out. I haven't taught you this. You already know about evaporation, where the particles of water get heated up and they start moving around really fast. And then they turn into a vapor, they vaporize and go into the air, and then the higher they go, they get cooled, and they condense down into clouds, and maybe even if the water droplets get heavy enough, some precipitation will fall. If they don't get heavy enough, it might rain up in the clouds. You call that virga, V-I-R-G-A, you recall. So look for virga all the time. I'm not going to ask you that tomorrow, but just reminding you about virga. So, and I'll show you the water cycle in just a minute. So anyway, but I wanted to show you this. You've got a solid, and how does a solid turn into a liquid? It heats up, and the particles start moving around really fast, and they break their fixed positions and move apart so you can pour them. Liquid, right? What happens to a liquid if you heat it up even more? It turns into a vapor. And then what happens to a liquid if you heat it up even more? It vaporizes up into the air. What happens if you cool that liquid down? Or that vapor down? Then it forms a liquid, water drops. If you cool that, the water drops down, what happens? They freeze and become solids. So, and then what happens if you heat those up? They melt. Well, all of that's really cool, but look at this. By the way, this kid is decked out the way he ought to be when he's doing something, interacting with dry ice. Now, dry ice does something. You read about it. I might ask you about it. It probably would be a matching. You know, I'd probably have melting there. I would probably have vaporizing there. I would probably have freezing. I might have the freezing point and boiling point, 0 degrees C, 100 degrees C of water. But look at this. This is where a gas is formed from a solid. It skips a liquid state. This is dry ice. And any of you who have interacted with dry ice know this. Dry ice goes straight from a solid block of ice. It goes right into a gas. It just vaporizes. This is called sublimation. Say that to yourself quietly 3 times. Sublimation. Say it again. Sublimation. Say it again. Sublimation. It's where some kind of matter, like dry ice, frozen carbon dioxide gas, goes straight from a solid into a gas, carbon dioxide. Now, if you ever interact with dry ice, if you ever do, I want to just caution you. Dry ice is dangerous because what gas do you have coming up? Carbon dioxide. Would it be good if you breathe in a lot of carbon dioxide? No. By the way, that's a gas on Mars. So wouldn't be good. And I'm just warning you. So you don't want to be directly over where a bunch of dry ice is sublimating into carbon dioxide gas. You don't want to be around that and keep breathing that and breathing that. I've done this before. I breathed in too much of that carbon dioxide and got a headache because I wasn't getting enough oxygen. So I got a headache out of the deal. So you need to be careful with it. And because dry ice is so cold, it can actually burn your skin. So this boy has gloves on, good move. But I've never handled dry ice without using thicker gloves than this. So because I don't want to get burned. You can get burned. Frostbite. It's frostbite, But it's the same as burning. The tissue dies. You kill your tissue off, kill your cells off in your skin. And he's got goggles too, which is good. So you don't want any of that to come up, and sometimes it gets a little bit explosive and could smack you in the head. So you don't want any of that. And then I wanted to show you this. I think I've got this. Your book referred to freeze-dried food. I used to backpack, so we use this kind of food from this company. It's extremely light, so if you're going backpacking for 10 days, like we sometimes did, or like my wife and I did once for 2 weeks, you have to have a lot of freeze-dried food. So we usually had at least one freeze-dried meal for dinner, and sometimes we'd have one for lunch too. So if you were going in for 10 days, you'd need 20 freeze-dried meals, and we'd eat other things for breakfast, like Pop-Tarts and oatmeal and stuff like that. So anyway, this is very light because they super froze it, and then they took out all the air out of the inside of it and the water. So the water went out, and they did that in a vacuum, so it was extremely light. So what do? You just have to hydrate it. So you'd boil water, pour it into the pouch that the freeze-dried food's in, stir it up, and then just let it sit for like 10 minutes, and then voila, you've got a pretty good meal. How many of you have had a freeze-dried meal before? Thumb up. Mr. Phillips looking around. Okay? So now, when we were backpacking, I was just talking to one of my friends that I used to backpack with, so last night actually, and whenever we had these freeze-dried meals, we loved them. They were great. But I have to say, you burn up so much energy when you're backpacking. We used to backpack up high in the mountains, like 8,000, 9,000, 10,000, 11,000 feet. So not as much oxygen up there. So you burn, and we'd be really active, and we'd be starved in the evening. So whatever we made, it tasted good. But actually, these mountain house meals are really tasty. Some people buy a whole bunch of these in big, kind of like buckets, just in case there's an emergency. Freeze-dried food. So anyway, I love the ones that are on here. This one is, let's see, fire-roasted vegetable something. We used to have something like that. Chicken teriyaki, I've had that before. Mexican-style rice and chicken, I think I've had that. Apple crisp, I didn't have that. I love apple crisp. So I'll bet that's good. So anyway, these weren't cheap because it's expensive to make them. But boy, they were good, and boy, they were worth it. Freeze-dried food. Anyway, if you ever backpack, you'll be buying some of this, I guarantee it. So your pack doesn't weigh that much. We used to carry, when we'd go in for 2 weeks, we'd carry 65 pounds. You know, and my wife and I, one year that we did the 2-weeker, we hiked round trip 25 miles in up to about, we were up at what's called the tree line. So right where the trees are and they end, and it's just too high for trees to grow, about 11,000 feet. This was the Weminuche Wilderness, northeast of Durango, Colorado, if you've been to southwestern Colorado. So anyway, gorgeous country, gorgeous. So I just love that area. It's so beautiful. So anyway, no charge for all of that. Now I better get rolling on this. Hey, I'm going to take a quick break. So anything you need to clarify with Mr. Phillip, then I'll be right back and finish up the review with you and show you the study guide. So, and go over it. All right, I'll be right back. He'll answer any questions. Mr. Phillip. Okay, I'm back. So I want to show you this really quick. So check this out. This is Wednesday night's homework notes page. Look at that little, as they say in Australia, little beauty. Here's what it says. It says Friday's test topics, study guide, triple R, all of this information. And then it says the first category is creation evolution. And I have down here, check out the 7th grade. Some of you are actually paying attention to this and you'll hear this. Some of you won't because you're daydreaming right now and it'll cost you. The 7th grade homework notes page has extra information on creation evolution. So you want to check that out. So you've got creation evolution, the 6 pillar information, there's chemistry, there's serious, superpower information. I'll come back to that in a minute. So I want to show you this. This is now up on Teams. If you did not have this, it's up on Teams. Mr. Phillip, I think, mentioned that at Wednesday's classes, so you know that already. So you could download it and print it. So anyway, today we're going to go over the 5th and the 6th pillars and then a few things about the rest of the study guide. We already did fossils, no tweeners, no ape men, proof of the Great Global Flood. We did the O pillar. Evolutionists need millions of years, billions of years for their time for their idea to happen. They don't have it because there's so much data that the Earth and the solar system is young, thousands of years old, right in keeping with what the Bible says God created in 6 days a few thousand years ago. So the science data actually matches the biblical data that God created quickly and not all that long ago. Thousands of years, maybe 4,000 or 5,000 years. Okay? So anyway, the O pillar, evidence against old age. Comets keep coming back. They shouldn't. The Earth's too hot. The Moon's too hot. Rocks are have too much water in them and gas. Dinosaur bones have DNA in them. It should have broken down by now if those bones are millions of years old. They're only thousands of years old because they haven't broken down. There's red blood cells in them. They haven't mineralized enough or hardened. All of that young age evidence. The A pillar, the accident pillar, no way accident. Law of cause and effect, everything's got to have a cause. Got to have causes for everything. It's a law in science. Law of biogenesis, living things can't come from non-life, they've got to come from living things. Makes no sense. Evolutionists say about both of those things, we don't care about that. So they should, because it's true science. Yeah. That life can only come from life, and God made life with the ability to reproduce. So there you go. Plants with the ability to give off seeds, reproduce. It's a God thing. They've got DNA in them. So do living things that produce cells that reproduce. They have DNA in them. Exact, specific order of the nucleotides of DNA to make that exact species of human, animal, or plant. So it's so not possible, the evolution idea. The DNA part just destroys it. Just, no. DNA, goodbye. I mean, it just, for an evolutionist to say, oh yeah, DNA just gradually evolved. I bet you can't get them to say that, actually admit that. Are you telling me DNA, you think it evolved? With its 6 billion nucleotides? Huh, really? And with specific patterns of nucleotides or components, DNA, chunks of DNA, for each kind of living thing? Oh, no way. So anyway, the A pillar. So living things need their equipment and instincts right now. They can't wait around to develop it. So anyway, all of that. By the way, don't forget the quote if you want to do the fossil quote. Don't forget that. The extreme rarity of transitional forms in the fossil record persists as a trade secret of paleontology. 2 points if you get it perfect. So he was a paleontologist expert. That's a fossil expert. And he said, look, the secret that all we paleontologists share, we won't admit it usually, we ain't got tweeners. And we ought to have tweeners to prove evolution happened. Tweener fossils. Thank you he was honest, which is cool, which is really neat. Then there's the M pillar, mutations, supposed to be one of the mechanisms that makes evolution happen, supposed to work with natural selection. What's the real story? What's the real science story? That mutations aren't good. They don't make things more complex. You can't wait around for good ones. You'll be picking your nose forever, waiting around forever. Most mutations are rare, they're harmful, and many of them are fatal. Do they make living things more complex and better? Absolutely not. They're bad. Mutations are bad. And mutations are supposed to work with natural selection. The fifth pillar over. Natural selection. Scientists will sometimes say, oh yeah, natural selection working with mutations makes living things change from one kind to another. You know what natural selection does? Nothing. It just gets rid of organisms that don't fit their environment very well. Now God made them to fit their environment. He gave them equipment, characteristics, instincts to match their habitat or environment. If they get sick, natural selection is going to remove them. But do they stick around to pass on good change? No. They just, adios. So they go bye-bye. So, and if mutations give them a disease or something that weakens them, they're going to be taken out. They're going to be removed. They're not going to change into something better and pass their changes on to offspring. Natural selection doesn't make change, it gets rid of change. Adios. So, anyway, those are the mechanisms. That's it. That's all they got. Mutations and natural selection. Both don't work. It's kind of like going, hey, you know what? I think I'm going to build a house with dynamite. Just put all the building materials in a pile and put a big stick of dynamite under there and light it. And run. You better run. Boom! Is it going to build your house for you? Is it going to make things more complex? Well, that leads me to the Big Bang, which was an explosion. Speaking of explosions. Do explosions produce complexity? No. Chaos. They don't make living things better. So when you press evolutionists, you go, hey, where'd the particles come from to make the Big Bang? We don't know and we don't care. Well, you ought to care. Because there's got to be a science answer to that. Well, it's a mystery. Great. But don't keep saying the Big Bang formed everything as if it's true. It's just your assumption, right? You don't know what happened. You're just making a guess because you don't want to believe that a creator, which is a way better idea, designed everything and made it specifically with specific characteristics. Like the universe. Specific distances between galaxies and stars, specific velocities or speeds, specific masses, and specific gravities. So the universe is laid out in the way it should be. It's not random. It's not chaos. There's a repeating pattern of galaxies. So Big Bang issues, I call them. Where'd the particles come from? Why did the particles attract? They were so far apart, little bitty particles, why would they have enough mass and gravity to attract each other? They wouldn't. They wouldn't. But we'll pretend it happened. Then why would everything that was formed from the Big Bang, the galaxies, supposedly, stars, planets, and moons, all be rotating? Explosions don't create specific rotations. They're all rotating. Wow. Huh. Shouldn't be. I know. That's why God created them with rotation. Yeah. So it shouldn't be happening. And then, not only that, let's see, what else? So those are the biggies. Okay? There's some others too, but those are the biggies why the Big Bang idea doesn't work. Okay? Explosions don't cause specificity. They cause chaos. Okay, next. The different categories. So all the evolution is there. Your chemistry topics are all there. I've got down chemistry, matter, the elements, know your symbols, physical change, chemical change. Physical change, just a change in shape. Chemical change, change in the actual way the atoms are structured. Brand new substance. Solids, liquids, gases. Solid to liquid, that's melting. Liquid to solid, that's freezing. A gas vaporizes. Gas to a liquid, condensation. Boiling point 100 C, freezing point 0 C. Water cycle, evaporation, condensation, and precipitation. And then sublimation, going directly from a solid to a gas. That would be dry ice. The rainbow star, there it is right there. I might ask you, probably will ask you, why does the rainbow star show different colors? Because the atmosphere refracts, bends light differently. So it bends it into different wavelengths, and each wavelength is a different color. Now, I want to tell you some divine design that's amazing. On the back of your eye, on your retina, you see those wavelengths of light. Your retina changes them into a color. And you see that. Then that wavelength is turned into an electrical message that goes through your optic nerve to the back of your brain where you see. You see in the back of your brain. You taste another place in your brain. You smell another place in your brain. All your senses prove there's a God. It's such a divine design and so complex. So you go from a chemical, a wavelength, changed into a chemical, so wavelength of light, changed into a chemical, changed into an electrical message, and that electrical message is interpreted by your brain to tell you what color and what you're seeing. Amazingly over-the-top complex. Such a divine design. Way to go, Jesus. Just amazing. Divine designs everywhere you look by the millions. Just all your life, I hope you'll look for divine designs. I hope you'll see them and go, that's a Jesus thing. You betcha. Okay, anyway, read the information about Sirius and the rainbow star. Read the information about the specific spacing, specific speeds, specific masses, specific gravities of the galaxies, stars, planets, and moons. I've got your superpower data here. Your GoTappy package, gifts, opportunities, talents, abilities, physical appearance, purpose. And the last P, personality, and then you're made in God's image. All of these are gifts from God. And you know what? One of your biggest joys and biggest wonderful things is going to be discovering who God designed you to be. What your gifts and talents are and what your purpose is going to be. God designed you with a purpose so you can make Him look good, glorify Him in His kingdom. And then one day, you're just going to use the GoTappy package He gave you, the superpower He gave you. You're just going to use it for His glory, and the Holy Spirit's going to help you, and then He's going to reward you for that one day in heaven. I don't get it. That's just like, how humble is God? You know? He's going to reward us for doing what He designed us to do. Thank you, Lord. That is an extreme blessing. And then how to develop your superpower. Here it is, how to develop it. Practice, 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 practice. Did I mention practice? I think I did. And then advice from experts, display grit, determination. I hang in there kind of attitude. I'm going to hang in there and I'm going to make this change for the better. Even when I don't feel like it, I'm going to tough it out. That's grit. So, and then another one is set goals and monitor your progress on those goals. And I guarantee that you will improve. That's guarantee that you will improve. There's no doubt about it if you do those things. Okay? And the little known fact is that hard work overcomes people who have special gifts and talents. If you and I just have kind of like, a basic GoTappy package and we work really hard at improving it, we'll probably go a lot further than people who have extra talent but don't really develop it. Just saying. So, kind of a cool thing. So, God rewards grit. So, anyway, triple R, all of that. Wednesday's homework notes section, 8th grade. You're looking on the 8th grade section, but look on the 7th grade section for the extra creation evolution information. I'm going to turn you over to Mr. Phillip. He'll clarify anything else and take over now. Mr. Phillip, thank you.